maybe it'd be good to just start with what made you go for it as far as choosing music as a living, because I'm sure you're very talented and could have done many other things, but was there a point where you thought, right, I'm gonna go for this?
So I suppose, I mean, every musician has a different musical background, different DNA, different, you know, they've listened, you know, to all kinds of music as they're growing up. For me, I mean, it's one of those things, and it's probably the same with you. It starts off as a hobby, and then I used it as a vehicle to be able to just, I started on the piano when I was 5, guitar when I was 8, singing when I was 12. So it's always been sort of there. But in regards to career-wise, there's two sides of the coin. One, I didn't give myself any other choice because my grades didn't end up as well as I thought. So that's one side of it. I was just like,
school.
Well, it was more like practicing 8 hours instead of revising, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So, I was into Joe Satriani and Steve Vai around my GCSEs, and I was just like, what? No, trigonometry or Seven with the Alien. What do I want to be doing? So
yeah.
So there was that, and then I went on to college, and you had to do like an audition. You had, you know, whatever minimal grades and stuff, and then I think it was that started to really kind of kick in, where my folks wanted me to do IT, or they wanted me to go and do something else. I tried it, and I was making musical websites, music this, and so you slowly start to realize that it's not a hobby anymore. You've got a passion in not just the music side, but the entrepreneurial side of it.
Yeah.
And I think that's actually where a lot of musicians sort of, not necessarily fall down, not everyone, but it's the entrepreneurial mindset of it, that if you don't have it alongside, and a lot of musicians get it later on, then it really becomes, you know, to the point where a lot of musicians go, I've done all the work, where's, you know, I've studied my instrument, I've done everything.
Yeah.
Now where's the work?
Yeah.
And I mean, I did that for a little while, but then, you know, it's going through university, and I think university, you're having to live by yourself and others and stuff. So how do I make a living? Right, let's go out and do some covers, let's go out and do bits and bobs here. You do free gigs, you're very much just, you know, throw yourself out there, and every either teaching, and I mean, sometimes teaching's not frowned upon, but it's one of those where they're like, it's like job C compared to like they want to be touring the world or whatever it is. And I took a different approach to that. I was like, well, no, this is, if you look at the pie chart of a musician, you know, teaching can be like a 40% of what you earn. So I really threw myself into that, and really enjoyed it. I've been doing it 15 years, and you come across those pupils, and you know as well as I do, you come across those pupils who just, you know, are so good, and they've kind of gone from scratch all the way up to, you know, gigging and things as well.
Yeah.
And that's what keeps you getting. You're like, okay.
Yeah, watching people grow, that's a big reward in itself, isn't it? It's not
the only one that does affect you is when you see that they've grown taller than you, and you're just like,
yeah,
oh right, are you?
And the better players than you.
Yeah, that as well.
Don't get too good.
But I think, yeah, and it's so in regards to sort of the keeping it alive, you know, those pupils, I think, I mean, we'll go more into the music side of things, because I've just finished like 5th album and stuff, and the only way I've been able to sort of keep those going is keeping your art authentic, but having like a double-edged sword where it can actually earn you at the same time. There's a really
has a commercial side, but it's still
because musicians will either go one side and they'll go right mainstream commercial, but they'll lose love for it because they have no sort of connection to it or no authenticity to it. And then there'll be other guys who, you know, it's like your painters, they'll paint to their heart's home, but they can't sell the thing. So it's that kind of balance between the two. So once I kind of went into the teaching side of it, and I started getting up like 30 hours a week of teaching, that became a spinning plate. And then I was able to sort of break back and then do weddings, balance it out. As you well know, function stuff, you got a bit of teaching, then you got your functions. Then I did the albums, and then and every year the pie chart would change. Like there'll be 40% of teaching, and then next year it'd be 30%. And then, so I'd see it metrically. And there's no one way to make it in, make a living out of music, really. So teaching was probably my earlier sort of memory of going into the business side. I mean, obviously I study it at college, I study it at uni, but practically, I think as a teacher, you're doing your finances and your invoices, and you're doing all those other things that you would not normally do. And also, we probably didn't have enough gigs at that time to be doing all invoices and everything all the time. Gig like every other month or something like that. So having that steady kind of income stream, and also learning on the job, having to work with schools, work with pupils, etc. So it was a huge learning curve. But
I mean, I guess most, a lot of degree courses, especially the more contemporary ones, they have that module, that part, the sort of the business side is all kind of included in that. That's sort of standard curriculum, isn't it now?
And
but
I think
it never used to be. And as you say, it's only kind of work out.
And it's probably like, I mean, there's so many courses and stuff like that, and that's from learning experience. They've kind of gone, actually, we can talk about the music, we can talk about all the elements and things as well, but a lot of people go, well, that's fine, but how do I make a living out of it? And that's probably the biggest question for any kind of musician wanting to go from a hobby to a career. You've got your hobby music, I think that's what it's about. You've got your hobby musicians who want to go and make EPs and albums for the sake of it and everything as well. But if you want to become a career musician, having those degrees and those modules now is so I wish I had it, but at the same time it's like, well, you learn the ropes in so many different ways.
Do you sell CDs still, or is it all down?
Still sell CDs and more sort of, beer mats or whatever it is now. No, they're kind of mementos, more at gigs probably. I have a few sort of dedicated fans who like to get stuff signed and all that sort of stuff. So I'm like, I buy bulk, but I don't buy like you used to buy thousands. I'm like, let's just get 100, whatever it is. Whatever it is.
Longer propping up the bed,
that's pretty much what it is. It's just like, where do you keep all these now? And we've got Little Hearts Music, which is our other side of the business, and we've got CDs for that. And we're just like, let's just go a maximum of 100, and if people want more, they get that. But nothing like you. I take 90-day approaches. So when I did Spotify and I built up my numbers there, I really learned and implemented everything about Spotify over 90 days. And if it wasn't for me after 90 days, I'd knock it on the head, or I'd go in with 2 feet. And then the next thing I did was, YouTube. So I did that for 90 days, and then I really sort of pushed that. And most often not, you can, after 90 days, it's a good amount of time for the plate to start to spin. And then I don't know if you've heard of the 80-20 rule, but you can do 80% on something, and then you just top up everything with 20%. So that's what I do for those 90 days. So it's not like, because when people talk about Spotify or setting up something else, it feels like, oh, that's going to take me 6 months.
It's another thing I've got to do.
It's another thing I do. Whereas I was like, well, if you break it up 4 times in the year, etc., and then you kind of just put 80% into those things. And I did Spotify about 2 years ago. Now, again, I'm not sort of proactively out on Spotify, because I know Spotify doesn't earn you a lot whatsoever. But I built up a sort of a wall of user playlists where I got all my tracks on. So there's a method of doing it. And now it just automatically spins in the background, and then if I bring out a track, I could put it on another playlist and it tops it up. But the key thing is not to go completely 2 feet into it. You're spending 24/7 doing that, and the return on your 24/7 just nothing. And it's the same with YouTube. You've got to do all these things, but I just find, right, one video, one big video, snip it all up, put it onto Instagram, put it onto YouTube, take the audio, put it onto Spotify. And that, I suppose, it's that method of working over time that again, it's not an over time, but you just got to consistently keep, you know how it is with promotional stuff and promotional videos.
It's fun. Yeah, it's some of all the parts, isn't it? You can't really say, right, but you know, I guess the analytics are there to make it a little bit easier than it used to be, but yeah, it's hard to put it down to one thing. So, oh, well, that's achieved that, and that's achieved that. It's very, very hard to do.
Yeah, and I think a lot of trial and testing, and that's what a lot of people don't do. They want to get a solid result on when the first hurdle will kick in or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But I compare it to when we were learning our instruments for the first time. I always reflect back on that, like how many hurdles we had to get through to become the players we are. And if you think about that, and that's what every musician has to do with their entrepreneurial business side of it, that, you know, they say obviously you've got to put 10,000 hours plus in for your instrument. I mean, way more if you want to master it, which anyway, but you have to do the same for that on your business side. And so whether that is YouTube or email marketing or website, sales funnels, oh dear, it's never ending. I mean, not all of it works. I'm not saying that either. I think you got to kind of accept that, you know, I don't know what the percentage is, but maybe 50% of it will work, and then there are it's like trial and testing all the time. Like when releasing music, instead of releasing an album all at once, release your album, split it up into 12 tracks, and just do it once a month on Spotify, and you'll get, or whatever streaming engines, and you'll get so much more momentum than just throwing out an EP or an album.
Yeah.
And so it's sort of strategies like that, actually, and that can keep your consistency up, because you'll have one track a month, then you'll put maybe a single video, and then you'll break that videos up into blah, 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 and emails that go around it. And then you've then got something that that sort of focus point, that focal point every month that you're working up towards. And I know in one way it can get a little bit boring after you're doing the same things, but I think you just need that kind of, you know, it's the same like we were talking about teaching. You need that amount of time to be teaching to be able to get to that point where you're so comfortable, you know what you're talking about, and if you're thrown questions, you've had them before, but you're not going to get that after 2 or 3 weeks. You're going to get that after.
No, you need that sort of consistent approach, and they say trial and error, find out what works and what doesn't.
And I think another way of doing it, I've got some pupils who are at the early stages and they're not even recording stuff or anything. So I said, well, I don't know if you ever clocked before, but on YouTube there's some guitarists who've done like their first 1,000 hours of guitar playing. So they've done videos of like the early days, and then they spliced it all together and put a video together. And now I've got pupils, and obviously it depends on age and things, but then now I'm just like, don't release the final product. Release a snippet of your arrangement or composition onto YouTube, you know, if you want to do that. And then people will invest in your journey. And by the time you do drop a big release or that whole arrangement or whatever it is, you'll have a crowd behind you. And so you don't have to be out there. I mean, gigging is great because you can get in front of lots of people. But I think now with YouTube and so many vehicles online, you can do it in so many strategic ways, and all you have to do is get a smartphone, just shoot, you know, put the camera on for half an hour, get your best take of whatever you've done, put it up, show everybody what you've been doing, this is what I'm working towards. And then by the time you drop that single on Spotify, it could be 6 months down the line. Like, I think everyone loves to see a journey rather than you see those professional sportsmen where they're like, they make it look so easy. I don't think people like to see that anymore. I think they like to see you going through those rough stages, which we never. I never did. I never had a smartphone then, but I look back at it now and I wish I had video clips of when I was going through the.
I was going to do a video of me doing some press ups, but then I realised I couldn't actually do any press ups.
Just a half one.
Just building up to it.
Just measure it by centimeters. Yeah, and that's so I'm showing that. So, you know, I've got another pupil, and I was like, well, what I want you to do is I want you to book in 8 FaceTime calls with your family over 8 weeks. So you just do a FaceTime call with like mum and dad, and I want you just to do a little performance of whatever you've been working on. The next week, do it to Nana and Grandma, or however it is. And then that's like 8 mini gigs, and then you do 2 medium ones, like a classroom gig and something. And then at the end of the year, do a Christmas concert. So I think it's trying to see it now. Obviously, this is the teacher sort of side of it, but like how you can give sort of solid, realistic maps for those people. Like
they're all useful goals, aren't they?
Yeah, and it's like, because otherwise it's like, A, you've picked up the guitar, to B, you're on stage performing in front of a whole room of people. Like, where there's no, you know, we know it's all over the place to get to that point. But I've been putting in those sort of strategies with some of my pupils, and one particular one, she's just really flying with it, and you can tell, you can hear she's uploading. She's not doing a FaceTime call, she's doing a little audio snippet of what she's done, and you can hear every week the development. And doing it in their own time, they also produce the best take. Don't delete a website when you are sleep deprived with a 2-month-old. That's all I say. 11 p.m. at night, I deleted my wedding page because I set up another website elsewhere. In 24 hours, the Google spiders then took it from ranking #1 on Google to page 10. So it was one of those where you're like, wow, like how. But I think again, it's one of those where like those failures or whatever it is, I think, you know, that you can if you take that as a failure and then learn from it, then you can then push on, you know, 10 times more than what you did. If you just go and knock it on the head, and you know, it's so easy to do that. Without a doubt, we're learning every day about how it all works, and I've gone into sales and marketing. I never thought I'd ever do it, but it's one of those, it's so fundamental, and email marketing, and so it's a long road, and I'm not there yet, but I'm very much immersed into it, and now I've given myself accountability and stuff. There's no choice. I think
pay for that shed.
Got to pay for that shed. So and I think that's where I kind of point. I was just like, I want to make you know, a living, a career online too. After last year losing all the touring and gigs and everything as well, I have to. And I think it was that crossover between I want and I have, and that's probably the same with music. And I don't know if you felt the same way. You were like, well, I want to be a musician too. No, this is my calling. I have to be a musician. I think that's probably been in my whole career, my whole life, of like want to, you know, sort of transitions and stuff. So that's a long-winded way of saying, you know, the online world, without a doubt, I think you just got to put 2 feet in and then decide what road you want to go down. I wouldn't go down all of them. It's like all the paths, isn't it? Like, do you do teaching, session work, gearing? Do you do your original stuff? You don't. You go down one first. Master it as much as you can, you know, to the point, and then decide, you know, do I want to go and add another strand? Because if you're doing all 4 at once, then you've only got 25% of your time on each.
One thing occurred to me is that you seem to be sort of building on that sort of workshop type thing, you know, that industry that's you know, doing a guitar workshop live, or on the bill with several other fingerstyle guitarists, because I think it's similar to drums. There's a certain group of people that do those drum workshops, or you know, and it seems to almost be a sort of a different part of the industry to some other things. So I suppose, was that something you targeted, or
weirdly? And I suppose actually I haven't really spoken about the fingerstyle thing, and I think that's because it's so niche, that there's a small pool compared to like singer-songwriters, because I was a singer-songwriter, and that's a mountain if you want to climb it. Where if you want to climb the fingerstyle, not that I've said I've got to the peak, but it's, you know, it's a hill as such. So when I went into that, and I call myself fingerstyle singer-songwriter, so I can kind of cross over or go in the fast lane of the singer-songwriters, nip in. And yeah, the fingerstyle world, you can very quickly go to these guitar nights, and you know, you meet them straight away, and they're also really down-to-earth guys. I mean, I don't know about the drummer world, but they're very much like, you know, with the band circuit and things, especially rock band circuit and stuff as well. You're in that green room, they're in that green room. They won't come out and watch you, you know, vice versa. Whereas with the fingerstyle, we'll be like sitting all in a, you know, in a group and things. We'll all be at the same trade shows. We'll all be at the same, whatever, workshops, like you were saying. Most often not, we'll have a workshop before we do a gig. And it's just because fingerstyle is like seen in the acoustic world, apart from, you know, apart from professional classical, as almost like the, I call it sort of the top of the chain, the level of acoustic guitar sort of play, because it's so virtuosic and things.
Top of the sort of level.
The technical side of it and things. So I think then once you kind of get into that pool, you start to get to know all those other guys, and they, you know, and then endorsements and things as well came along with that. And that's why I was like, well, let's do a workshop, because people were interested in that side of it, the technical side of it, and then tag it onto a gig. So there's been a number of that, and you end up then able to go to different countries and that way. But yeah, I mean, that it feels so long ago since I've done a gig. I can't remember
what happened.
I can't remember a workshop.
What would you say is your 3 top practice tips?
So I've been taking this approach with my students called habit tagging. I don't know if you've heard of it. Basically, it is what it says on the tin. So I put the kettle on, and if the kettle lasts 2 or 3 minutes, I then go and work on my weaknesses on my guitar. I've got a guitar hanging up in the living room, just a sort of box down one, and I'll go there and I just work on whatever weakness it is, you know, whether it's, I don't know, chord changes or something from my song. And as soon as I then got my tea, I'd sit down for 3 minutes and then just play something. So it was trying to find those moments where majority of the time it's working on muscle memory, or it's working on weaknesses, because a lot of people don't want to work on their weaknesses, but they then find it hard to get past that barrier. They're always working their strengths. So I have this kind of, so that's habit tagging's one, which then leads on to, I call it focus practice and free play. So if you've got a 4-minute block, which everyone should have a 4-minute block, whether it's, you know, before school, work, or, you know, in the evening, I go, right, 2 minutes of focus, 2 minutes of free play. So with the 2 minutes of focus, for non-stop, you have to work on that weakness, whether it's, I don't know, in the beginner stage, it'll be between C major and G major. You do not stop changing that for 2 minutes straight. You can put your hand over the strings so it's not audible, because sometimes that can dent the momentum if you play a wrong note or something it is. So I'm doing that for guitar, that's not working. And then for the next 2 minutes, you get to play what you want. So it's like, and for kids, I go, it's like eating Brussels sprouts for 2 minutes and then having whatever you want for dessert for 2 minutes. Put your guitar down, go and pick it up another 4 minutes, but you do a different weakness on your focus practice. Now, obviously, that's only 4 minutes. It's not a lot of time, but once they add up, because even if you've got a 30-minute block, they'll only work on a weakness for like, you know, 10% of the time. And then the rest of it, they'll play through the pieces, or they'll do whatever it is that entertains them, because the short attention span and stuff. So you've got habit tagging, you've got focus practice, and free play. And the third one, I have a little formula called slow equals smooth equals fast. So you slow down your weakness to snail pace, you iron it out, and then you can bring it back up to pace. What I have been doing with a student recently is he's been doing guitar arranging. So he'll work on the melody, but he has to work on them. He has to be able to memorize the memory at 60 BPM and 70, 80, 90, 100 up to, 120 or whatever it is. Then he'll bring in the melody and the bass, the root notes, but he has to start from 60. So then once he'd gone from 60 to 120 on one layer or whatever angle, they do it 60 to 120 and they build these up. And what that gives them is a little metric system.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because, you want to have time to play, but also just playing without thinking about what you're playing is going to limit your progress.
Definitely. And I think that's, you can tell actually some of the pupils that I've had, it's like the roller coaster. They're going up and up and up, and as soon as they go over the top, they've come into the lesson and go, "Can we do scales today, sir?" They found something that is ignited them, but they've given themselves that amount of time. They're not aware of it, but they've had that sort of amount of time.
Yes.
And most of the time, and we don't ever start this as teachers, but we were like, it will take you a minimum of 3 years before it starts to the benefits really do start to sort of pour out. But if you say that from the word go, they're not going to take it.
No one's going to start.
Well, we know, like, I think I've got a mindset now of like, if I was to go and start anything like a sport or whatever it is, I'll be like, well, if I give it myself, and I know it's a long time, but if I give myself a minimum of 3 years of just trying to do this, trying to work at it, I'll be pretty good at it. And then 10, and then longer than that. So that's why
it doesn't work with me with golf.
Oh, do you know what? That's probably why I haven't tried anything. That's how I approach my playing these days. And then it becomes manageable because actually I've looked at the bigger picture of I'm going to arrange this song, and I've arranged this song from my past or whatever it is, and what I used to listen to in my dad's car. So, and I call it nostalgic composing or arranging. So I then tap into a core memory, take that core memory of a music memory, and then put it into a guitar arranging. And my motivation and momentum, my motivation's like sky high. So when I come around to practicing, I can't wait. And to still have that fire after 30 years is, I think that's the key in my part and how I'm able to get longevity out of it. And I think that's how a lot of other musicians got to find. They've got to find something that can keep the fire burning.
No, that's definitely right. I feel like I ought to need to go off and do some practice, or at least get down the driving range.
I went just before lockdown. I need to go again.
Well, I'm glad it's all going well, and you kind of, you found your place, haven't you? Really.
Well, and I think I know this is what I've spoken to with certain other course students and stuff. It's just kind of like just try and find an angle or whatever it is, especially for the younger musicians, of just like, what do I do? How do I do it? Because there's so much now. You're not just like gigging and doing that. It's the online stuff. They got so much more now than what I was doing, what we were doing when we were pushing it when we were younger. So I like we were saying, I think just going down whatever route, whatever rabbit hole, go down one rabbit hole first. And then see how it turns out and stuff. So I'm still going down rabbit holes. So it's fun. It's fun.
Catch you soon.
See you later, mate.
Yeah. See you, mate. Bye-bye.